Trump administration has been inching closer to war with Iran. But after this weekend, it appears that the administration is sprinting toward military action against Iran. Now, this follows news that Iran allegedly bombed an oil facility in Saudi Arabia. Now, the United States claims that Iran is behind this. Saudi Arabia claims that Iran is behind this. Neither party has provided any type of evidence indicating that this is the case, and even our allies are skeptical of these allegations. Now, here's what we know so far. The Houthi rebels in Yemen claimed responsibility. The Houthi rebels in neighboring Yemen claimed responsibility for the assault, which hit one of the world's largest oil processing facilities, hundreds of miles from the Yemeni-Saudi border, and sharply impacted global oil prices. But a senior US official told ABC News Saturday that was false. It was Iran. The Houthis are claiming credit for something they did not do.
That's a senior US official. That is not a fact.
That's right. That's right. So the reason why it's not a fact is because, again, no one has provided any evidence indicating that Iran is behind this. And again, it's just both parties, both Saudi Arabia and members of Trump's administration, not everyone, but several members of Trump's administration have been pushing for war with Iran. And so there have been some questionable claims by the United States previously when it comes to Iran. And now, I mean, I think you can understand why people are skeptical. They want to see evidence. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi dismissed the US allegations that it was was pointless. A senior Revolutionary Guard commander warned the Islamic Republic was ready for full-fledged war.
So Iran has to walk a line there. They have to say, look, this isn't true, that's their claim. And then say, but hey, listen, don't attack us, because if you do, we're fully capable of being able to attack all of your bases and your aircraft carriers within a 2,000-mile perimeter. And so that will be the full-fledged war that they're talking about. And they're saying, look, if you think we took down your drone, which they did take down a drone, the question is, and this was an earlier incident, whether it was in Iranian territory or in international waters. And you think that we did these bombings, well, then obviously we have a lot of capability. And so, as always, the neocons like Lindsey Graham are saying that, oh, this will be easy. Once we bomb them, they'll know their place. I mean, we heard the same things about Iraq. It's preposterous. But to me, before we go further here, I want to give you the quote that I think is most important from the New York Times story on this. They said the satellite photographs released on Sunday did not appear as clear-cut as US officials suggested, with some appearing to show damage on the western side of the facilities, not from the direction of Iran or Iraq. See, to me, that should be the first paragraph.
Yes, 100%. Also, as I mentioned, our allies are skeptical of these claims as well, including the British Foreign Secretary. He was quoted as saying, in terms of who is responsible, the picture is not entirely clear. I want to have a very clear picture, which we will be having shortly. So look, again, there have been all sorts of accusations by the United States against Iran. They've failed to provide any concrete evidence that Iran is the aggressor here. And remember, the relationship between the United States and Iran really started to fall apart after Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal and implemented sanctions that are honestly really hurting the people of Iran. So look, one theory is that if Iran did this, well, it's a message to Donald Trump. You mess with our economic interests, well, then we're gonna mess with yours. And Saudi oil very much does impact the US economy. And so that is, I think, a sound theory, but you still need evidence, concrete evidence showing that Iran is behind this oil facility bombing.
So they do have one more piece of evidence that leans towards Iran. But there's also one piece of evidence that hasn't come in yet that I think is all important. So they say that there was 17 attempts of bombings, not all of them hit. And they say that it's a combination of drones and cruise missiles, and that would be beyond the capability of the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And well, I could see how the Houthis would have a hard time getting drones and cruise missiles. So that's an interesting piece of evidence. But apparently, since some of the bombs missed, they can be recovered. And then you could see where they were made. Now, first of all, if you're gonna find a bomb anywhere in the world, it's likely made in the USA. Okay, but in this case, that would be unlikely. And so, but that would be a very important piece of evidence. We should definitely not take any action until we have recovered such weapons and figured out what are they, who made them, who would have the capacity to possess and fire those type of weapons. And then you gotta see if you trust the Saudis on that, because it landed in Saudi territory, and obviously the current government of Saudi Arabia are notorious liars. And then you'd have to trust the US government, headed by a notorious pathological liar. So this is where all Donald Trump's ridiculous, insane assertions and tweets become relevant.
Yes.
Very, very relevant to foreign policy and war, because it's super obvious to any sane person that Donald Trump cannot be trusted. He lies nonstop. So when it's about silly things and drawing in Sharpies, and even that's of course super important because that was about a hurricane and the path of the hurricane, but about his ego, etc. Well, they're amusing anecdotes, and you look at it with some degree of despair, but they're not as relevant. Well, when it comes to war, it couldn't be more relevant. So the fact that no one on planet Earth can trust our president, including our own citizens, is a big problem in this case.
Absolutely.
Because by the way, one of the things is that they could be telling the truth, but even so, they've lost so much credibility. And it's not just Trump, Pompeo on foreign policy has no credibility at all.
Right, I mean, he, oftentimes when we talk about war hawks within the administration, we would talk about Bolton, but of course Pompeo is part of that equation. Pompeo was just more subtle in pushing Trump toward war. And just to give you a sense of what Pompeo had to say about this alleged Iranian bombing, he said Tehran is behind nearly 100 attacks on Saudi Arabia, while Rouhani and Zarif pretend to engage in diplomacy. Amid all the calls for de-escalation, Iran has now launched an unprecedented attack on the world's energy supply. There is no evidence the attacks came from Yemen. So he's putting out this message, and Trump, for his part, uses warlike wording in his tweets. I'll give you an example. Saudi Arabia oil supply was attacked. There is reason to believe that we know the culprit, are locked and loaded depending on verification, but are waiting to hear from the kingdom as to who they believe was the cause of this attack, and under the terms we would proceed. Okay, so locked and loaded is not going to make the situation any better. And think about the wording there. Trump is waiting on Saudi Arabia to confirm who conducted this attack. Why are you waiting on Saudi Arabia to inform you? I mean, yeah. Come on.
So there's two things there. One, Tulsi Gabbard with a very harsh but tweet that I really liked, saying, I didn't know we were Saudi Arabia's bitches. Okay.
Well, we've been.
And so saying like, what we were waiting from Saudi Arabia to give us orders on who to attack. And unfortunately, there are some Democrats who think we should do that. So like Senator Chris Coons is like, well, we might have to go to war over this, depending on what Saudi Arabia says. No, we make our own decisions. And I'm not gonna take orders from a butcher like Mohammed bin Salman on who of his enemies we should attack on his behalf.
Right.
Right. And on Pompeo, the reason among the many reasons he can't be trusted is they said that Iran attacked some oil ships earlier, and witnesses on the ships contradicted almost everything that Pompeo and US officials had said about those attacks. So they were clearly lying about those, and so now they've lost all credibility, and there's no reason to believe any of the things that Pompeo and Trump have said. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.